1930, first World Cup. Almost 100 years of football, 100 years of the greatest tournament on earth, 23 editions, dozens of host nations, hundreds of legendary moments. And in all of that time, not one African nation has ever lifted that trophy. Not one. The continent that gave the world some of its greatest footballers, where Drogba, Eto'o, Mane, Salah, Hakimi, has never produced a World Cup winner. So today we ask the question that 1.4 billion people have been asking for nearly a century. Can an African team win the World Cup? To understand where Africa is going, you have to understand where it's been. And this story, this full story, is one of the most dramatic in all of football. Egypt was the first African nation to ever play at a World Cup back in 1934. They lost 4-2 to Hungary and went home. No other African nation made it to the tournament for decades after that, because FIFA's qualification system at the time actively excluded African and Asian nations. The continent was being locked out before it even had a chance. The first truly modern era World Cup for Africa. Morocco qualified and become the first African team to avoid defeat at a World Cup, drawing with Bulgaria. It's a small moment, but it matters. The door cracks open. Algeria beat West Germany, one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. The whole world is watching, but then something disgusting happens. West Germany and Austria play a match knowing the exact result. They need to eliminate Algeria. They play out a 1-0 German win. Both teams advance. Algeria go home.
For bringing the game into disrepute. This is one of the most disgraceful international matches I've ever seen. Getting the hammer, getting the bird.
The match becomes known as the disgrace of Gihon. Africa gets its first taste of winning, and the first taste of how the world treats African success. This is the moment. Roger Milla, 38 years old, semi-retired, living on the island of Reunion. The president of Cameroon personally calls him back into the squad. Game 1, Cameroon vs Argentina. The defending world champions. Everyone knows how this ends. Except it doesn't end that way. Cameroon win 1-0 with 9 men. The indomitable lions roar. A continent erupts. They beat Romania. They beat Colombia with 2 Roger Milla goals. Him dancing at the corner flag each time in that iconic celebration. They reach the quarterfinals. They lead England with 7 minutes to go, 1 foot in the semi-finals. Then Gary Lineker scores twice, 3-2. Extra time, England go through. Africa weeps, but something has permanently shifted. The world can no longer pretend Africa doesn't belong at the top of this tournament. Nigeria at USA 94 were electric. Finidi George, Rashidi Yekini, scoring and grabbing the net in pure joy. They top their group above Argentina. They lose to Italy in the last 16, a very late Roberto Baggio equalizer, then a golden goal winner. In France 98, Nigeria and Morocco both go out in group stage, but the continent keeps qualifying. More teams keep improving. Their very first World Cup, very first game, France, the defending world champions. Everyone knows how this ends. Except Papa Bouba Diop scores in the 30th minute and Senegal hold on. They win 1-0. Diop takes off his shirt, places it on the ground, and his entire team dances around it in a circle. It becomes one of the most iconic celebrations in World Cup history. Senegal reaches the quarterfinals on their debut, beating the holders along the way. Africa is no longer a surprise. Africa is a genuine force. The World Cup comes to Africa for the first time. South Africa hosts. The entire continent is united behind Ghana, the last African team standing. Quarterfinal, Ghana vs Uruguay. 1-1, extra time. 120th minute. Dominic Adia heads towards the goal. Luis Suarez on the line handles it deliberately. Red card, penalty. Asamoah Gyan, Ghana's best player, the man who carried this team, steps up. The whole of Africa is watching. He hits the crossbar. Ghana lose on penalties. To this day, Luis Suarez is one of the most controversial figures in the African continent. And Asamoah Gyan, who carried that weight for years, deserves nothing but respect. So close, so agonizingly close. Morocco do what no African nation has ever done. They eliminate Spain on penalties. Hakimi with the audacity to score a Panenka in a World Cup shootout, looking directly at the goalkeeper and chipping it straight down the middle. They eliminate Portugal. They reach the semi-finals. They lose 2-0 to France in the last 4. A bridge too far, but only just. The ceiling has been broken. The question has changed. It's no longer if Africa can compete with the best. It's when Africa will win. We are now in 2026. The biggest World Cup in history. 48 teams, 3 host nations, more games than ever before. And Africa sent 10 teams. The most representation the continent has ever had at a World Cup. Here's the real question. Not just can Africa win, but what will it take? What is the actual formula? Because it's not just about talent. If it was just about talent, Africa would have won by now. Drogba, Eto'o, Weah, Mane, these are generational talents, and none of them have lifted the World Cup. So what is missing? Let me break it down honestly. Every African World Cup story that ends in heartbreak has a common thread: too much dependency on one player. Nigeria in 1994 had Rashidi Yekini and Finidi George, but when they needed a moment, the system broke down. Senegal in 2022 missed Mane and never recovered. Ghana in 2010 had Essien injured before the tournament, the entire midfield engine gone. The 2022 Morocco team was different. They had no one superstar. Hakimi, Ziyech, Amrabat, Boufal, and Nesiri. Contributions from everywhere. That is the template. The African team that wins the World Cup will be a team first, a collection of stars second. Look at every World Cup winner in history. They all had an elite goalkeeper and a mean defense. Italy 2006, Buffon. Spain 2010, Casillas. Germany 2014, Neuer. Morocco in 2022 conceded 1 goal in regulation play across 7 games. That discipline is what tournament football demands. But here is where African teams have historically struggled. Converting dominance into goals. Being solid defensively isn't enough. You need to punish teams on the counter, on set pieces, in the moments that matter. The formula: an unbreakable back 4, plus a goalkeeper with ice in his veins, plus 2 or 3 attackers who can produce magic in a single moment. Africa has all of these ingredients right now. It's about assembling them together consistently across 7 games. Tournament football is a psychological warfare. The penalty shootout, the 89th minute equalizer, the red card in extra time. These are moments that separate champions from nearly men. Gyan's crossbar, the disgrace of Gihon, the 94th minute Germany winner against Ivory Coast. African teams have historically struggled with these moments, not because of a lack of ability, but because of the weight of expectation and the lack of experience at this level. Morocco in 2022 changed that narrative. They were calmer in shootouts than Spain, more composed under pressure than Portugal. That mental shift from hoping not to lose to believing they can win is the final ingredient. Let's be honest, luck matters, the bracket matters. In a 48-team tournament, an African team that tops their group could face a much softer path to the quarterfinals than one that finishes second. One favorable draw in the round of 16 can change everything. You go as far as the bracket allows, and then you make history. This one is underrated. When an African team goes deep at a World Cup, the entire continent rallies behind them. Morocco in 2022 weren't just playing for Morocco. They were playing for every African child who ever dreamed of the World Cup. Their collective energy is a weapon. It lifts players, it creates an atmosphere that opponents aren't used to fight against. When Africa is truly united behind one team, that team becomes almost impossible to beat. So which African teams are genuinely capable of winning a World Cup? Right now, in this generation, Morocco is the most complete team Africa has ever produced. Hakimi just won the Champions League with PSG at 27, the peak of his career. Brahim Diaz, capable of unlocking any defense. Sofiane Amrabat, one of the best defensive midfielders Africa has produced in a while. Yassine Bono, a goalkeeper who saved 2 penalties against Spain in a World Cup shootout and didn't even blink. The tactical system under the coaching staff is the most sophisticated in African football history. They can counter-attack at lightning speed, control possession, defend a 1-goal lead with their eyes closed. So the verdict: can any African team win the World Cup? I'm going to give you an honest answer, broken into 3 parts. The head says the gap is closing rapidly. Morocco proved in 2022 that an African team can beat the best European nations on the biggest stage. Egypt have a generation player in peak form. The expanded 48 World Cup gives African nations more games, more experience, more chances to go deep. The structural barriers, the biased qualification system, the colonial scheduling of tournaments are slowly but surely being dismantled. The heart says it's Africa's time. The talent has always been there. The hunger has always been there. The culture, the passion, the love of the game, it runs deeper on this continent than almost anywhere else on earth. A World Cup without an African champion is a World Cup that hasn't fully arrived yet. My prediction says Morocco reach the semi-finals of the 2026 World Cup. And if they get there, if Hakimi is fit, if Brahim Diaz finds his best form, if Bono saves 1 crucial penalty in the knockouts, I believe they can reach the final. And in a final, on that stage, anything can happen. If not 2026, then 2030. If not 2030, then 2034. When the World Cup comes to Africa and Morocco co-host in front of their own people on the biggest stage ever, if that's not the moment, I don't know what is. 96 years of waiting, of near misses, of heartbreak, of being told you don't belong at the top of the game. Roger Miller proved he belong. Papa Bouba Diop proved he belong. Asamoah Gyan proved you belong. Even in heartbreak, Hakimi proved you belong in the semi-finals. The only step left, the final whistle, the trophy, the tears. Africa's moment is not coming, it's already here. That's the full story. 96 years in one video. Now I want to hear from you. Which African team do you think wins the World Cup first, and when? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's build this conversation.